The Little House, presented by Talia Garrison, Jamie Baker Tilford, Kristen Butler, and Will Alexander. Class, yesterday we read a fictional book called The Little House. Now remember, this is a fictional book because it is a made-up story. The Little House went through so many changes, if we remember, changes in its surroundings and changes in her feelings. Today we're going to review the book and focus on the different places, people, and changes the Little House encountered. Here is our learning go. Today we will identify changes that take place in the Little House life. And we're going to review 2 settings or places the Little House lived. Does anyone remember? Right, city and country. Then we are going to use our bubble maps to review some key words. So for our country, what words? Think of descriptive words that we can use for each setting. This way, we will be able to make connections to why the Little House felt the way she felt during these times and identify the changes that take place. So for country, what are some descriptive words? Good. There's flowers, dirt roads, grass, and apple trees. Those are some good descriptive words. Now for city, what are some descriptive words we can use to represent a city? Skyscrapers, factories, streets, and many people. Good. So those are the 2 different places that the Little House lived, the city and the country. So let's review the story with a couple of questions before we get into our activity. So, class, who is the main character of the story? Think about who we are talking about most. Right, the Little House. In what place did the Little House begin? Think of our bubble maps and the descriptive words for the 2 different places. Where did the Little House begin? Correct, in the country. Okay, class. Now we're going to return to our table groups and we're going to work on our guided practice activity for today.
Okay, guys, so now that I have the worksheets all passed out, let's go ahead and look at what we're going to be doing for this activity. So for this activity, we will be using a graphic organizer to help us recall the story. We will answer the following questions throughout each section of the organizer. Where is the Little House, country or city, and what changes take place? So let's go ahead and look at the 3 sections that we have. So we have the beginning, the middle, and the end. So I want you to tell me what happened in the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story. So let's go ahead and start with number 1. Where is the Little House, country or city? So think back to what a country and what a city is and what makes up the 2. Miss Garrison just went over everything that you should know. So where is the Little House? Right, the Little House was built in the country. What changes took place in the beginning? The house began to see more horseless carriages on the dirt road. Right, and what else? Right, a road was made along with a gasoline station and small houses. So let's go on to the middle of the story. Where is the Little House now? The Little House now is considered in the city. So remember, the Little House didn't move, but everything else around the Little House changed to make it a city. All right, what changes took place? Right, the house started to run down, and there is no longer fields of daisies. Buildings were everywhere, and even a subway was built underneath the Little House. How do you all think that made the Little House feel? Right, I would say the Little House was sad. Nobody was taking care of her anymore. Everything around her just kept changing. And what was it that she mentioned in the story? Right, she mentioned that everybody was on the run and no one had time to slow down. So let's go on to the end of the story. Where is the little house at the end of the story? Right, the little house was now back in the country. So what changes took place in the end to get her to the country? Right, the little house received a new owner and she was moved back to the country. Now, when she was being moved, she was kind of scared, right? But once she seen where she was going, she got so excited. So the little house's shutters and windows were fixed by the new owner, and she was also painted a lovely shade of pink. So in the end, the house was able to go back to the countryside. She received a new owner, and she was fixed up. So she was really happy, and it was a good ending to our story. All right, so everybody just go ahead and clear your desks, and we're going to get ready for the assessment part.
Okay, guys, so we have done a couple different activities with the little house. We have done our bubble map and our graphic organizer. Now we are going to take a test. There are 10 questions on your test, including 7 multiple choice and 3 written response questions. As always, whenever you take a test, there should be 0 talking unless you're talking to me or you're trying to get my attention because there has been an emergency. If you need help reading any of the questions, you may raise your hand and I will help you. Please make sure that on the written responses that you are using your very best handwriting and you're writing in complete sentences like we have practiced. When I pass out your test, make sure your name is on the top of your test, and once you have your name on your test, you may begin. Good luck.
So to review our lesson today, we learned how to identify the setting in our story. And not only the setting, but the setting changes that occurred in our story by using the actual text itself and the pictures throughout our book to see where the little house traveled along his way. We also used what we learned about these settings to determine why the uh, little house's mood might have changed while leaving from place to place, and what affected him. And how did we gather these thoughts? Well, if you remember, our graphic organizer we used is what we used to help put our thoughts down on paper and identify where the little house lived at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of our story, and how his mood changed also from the beginning, middle, and end of our story as he moved around, and what those moods were while he lived in each place. So that will conclude our lesson for today. This lesson can be co-taught in multiple different ways, but the most effective of these ways being by splitting our students up into 2 different groups. These 2 groups would group the students with the lower needs who do not need as much assistance on one side of the room or one area of the classroom, with the general ed teacher in the room. And that side of the room, of course, would go through our story and text with like a popcorn style reading, or whatever strategy the teacher chooses to use with that. Mostly popcorn in the experiences that I've encountered is used with the general education kids to keep them all attentive and into the story and paying attention to the work itself. While our higher need friends are with our assistive teacher, our aide, or our special education teacher, whoever else is in the room, is working with those students on more of a choral reading style, where like I would read a line of the story and they would repeat it back to me while following along with their finger, and or setting the students up with their electronic versions of the text, whatever they may need to get this information across to them, or whatever is decided in the plan that they need to most effectively get this information across. These 2 groups will also be very important when it comes to the activity and assessment part of this lesson. The activity part, having them together, will allow the assisting teacher to more easily go from student to student or stay with the individual student, however many there is in the classroom. When it comes to maybe needing to modify the work, scribing for these students, reading different things to them, just being able to use those supports will be so much easier with these students in one location instead of having to try to go across the room or stay sporadic throughout, and it'll allow them to more efficiently and effectively use their time with these students. And same goes for the assessment. The assisting teacher will definitely need to work with these students more, maybe even reading questions to them, using sentence starter type approaches on the actual written questions, uh, maybe helping modify the work by eliminating one of the answer choices. Uh, just whatever that plan is that is being put in place for these students by the people around them, it would be more easily done with these students in groups together. And that's really it. Just splitting the two groups up and allowing the assistive teacher a more readily available and easy path to these students.